Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shah, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shah. All praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah, Ba'ashem Rekakadash. Now, when you're looking at the churches that's on every corner in the so-called black and Hispanic neighborhood, you can identify them real quick because most of them have idolatry on the top of the building, and they're spewing out of their mouth some denomination of Christianity, Jehovah Wickedness, Mormonism, Seventh-day Adventists. There's a lot of denomination that they spewing out of their mouth. And so the reason we call these places harlot houses or whore houses, because this is what the Bible calls them. You see? And so in Timothy, he described these harlot houses to the T, because not only does it's a spiritual representation, it's also a physical representation of a harlot house. Now, let's go to get the foundation of what a church or the temple is all about. Now, we're going to go to, let's see here, Acts. You're going to go to the book of Acts. Acts chapter 7. And starting at verse 48. 7 verse 48, it says, "Howbeit the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands, as says the prophet." 49, "Heaven is my throne, and earth is my footstool. What house will you build for me, says the Lord? Or what is the place of my rest?" You see? So the Most High letting them know, you can't build me no house, because I'm bigger than a building. And the prophet lets you know, the Most High dwelleth not in temples. Just because it got a cross on the top and it's supposed to represent something religious in the Bible, or supposed to represent something in the Bible, and just because they got a Bible inside of the place, and they spewing all of these doctrines, that doesn't make it the house of God, or that God's dwelling in this place. So let me get the next precept. Let's see here. Let's go with 7, Jeremiah chapter 7 verse 4. Because see, most people, soon they see it, they're gonna say, they're gonna say that's the house of God. They're gonna say that's the house of the Lord. All this type of stuff. And they don't understand what they're talking about. Now, Jeremiah 7 verse 4 say, "Trust ye not in lying words, saying, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord are these." You see, because that's what these so-called blacks is saying. You see, they don't care what church they go to. They just want to go to a church that's nice to them and that treat them nice. They don't care about which one they go to, because in their mind, they saying that these are the temple of the Lord. You see, that's how they going off. And so let's get what is the temple of the Lord. Then we're going to go back and get the harlot house. Straight out the scriptures. Okay, let's get 1 Corinthians chapter 3. 1 Corinthians chapter 3. And we're going to start at verse 16. It say, know ye not that you are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? If any man defileth the temple of God, him shall God destroy. For the temple of God is holy, which temple you are. So the temple of God dwells in men. But what kind of men? That's the whole situation. What kind of man does the temple of God dwells in? Do it dwell in any kind of man? Okay. Now let me get this Acts 11 and 26, because this is what these people is basing stuff off of, and it's just plain in error. Acts chapter 11 verse 26, it says, and when he found him, he brought him unto Antioch, and it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the church. Okay. You see, that's where they get this stuff from. They assembled themselves with the church and taught much people, and the disciples was called Christians first in Antioch. Now, first of all, we just done certified that the temple of God is in man. The Spirit of God is in man. Okay? Not a temple built with hands. You see? Then this thing say they assembled themselves with the church. That Paul and Barnabas assembled themselves with the church for a whole year. And people in Antioch were calling them Christian. But who was Paul and who was Barnabas? See, that's the whole thing. Who was these individuals? Now, when you go to Acts 13, it said that they also, in Antioch, was calling Paul and Barnabas Niger, meaning they was calling them black. So they're black men. Okay, you're black men. Let's get that. Not only was the people calling them black men Christians, you see, they was calling these black men Christians in Antioch. So these black men that was called Christian in Antioch, they assembled together with the church. But let's get who was Apostle Paul. Real quick, we just gonna get who was Apostle Paul. Romans 11 verse 1, it say, I say, then has God cast away his people? God forbid, meaning no. For I also am an Israelite from the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. So these was Israelites. These was Israelites who were so-called black men or dark-skinned men, and they was calling them the church, and they was calling them Christian. This is not just people that so-called follow Yahweh, who they ignorantly call Christ or Jesus Christ. It was more than that. They was, and to be specific, Christ means the anointed. So they was calling these people anointed. These are the anointed Israelites. You see? And they assembled themselves together. Anointed, dark-skinned Israelites who assembled themselves together. That's what you get out the Bible. See, you don't get that crap that these people teaching in these harlot houses. And the reason he called it the harlot houses, because this is what they teaching, that anybody can be a Christian if they just say they believe on somebody named Jesus Christ, when that ain't even Yahweh's name. But that's what they spewing out of their mouth. Now let's go back to Jeremiah and get why we calling these people so-called temple harlot houses. What is Jeremiah 5:7? It says, how shall I pardon you for this? My children have forsaken me, and sworn by them that are no gods. When I had fed them to the full, they then committed adultery and assembled themselves by troops in the harlot houses. So this is what the nation of Israel is doing. You see, when you can go to many countries and many places in the world, and the only place you're going to see these harlot houses is where the nation of Israel is assembled, living. Their living quarters, the slave quarters, pretty much. Because you don't see this in other people's country on every corner. You see, because they're pushing this off on the so-called Israelites, and we are the most spiritual. We are the temple of God, and He's dwelling in us, so we push out the spirituality. Now let's get that real quick to give an understanding of what that's all about. That's in Romans 10. It say 10:2. Romans 10:2. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge. See, the Israelites have a zeal for God. That's why it's on every corner, because they been taught this form of teaching or doctrine, and they multiplying the doctrine because the Spirit of God is dwelling in them to give them a zeal for God. But it's not according to knowledge, because they don't know that they are the Israelites. They don't have a biblical identity. They don't have a biblical nationality. See, this Christianity don't teach that. It teaches you other things. And so when we go to Acts, let's get Acts 11:19. So of course, because Christianity teaches you in Acts chapter 10, they start bringing in the Gentile, and they try to tell you that Cornelius is a Gentile, which he is not a Gentile. Because when you look at Acts 10:22, it says he had a good report among all the nation of the Jews. Now, mind you, the Jews don't have nations. They have tribes. So Cornelius had a good report among all the tribes of Israel. Because they just throw the Jews out there. The Jews, that's a new word too. That wasn't in the King James, the original 1611 King James. You see, that's a new concept, because they throw the letter J out there, created in the 1600s. So when you get to chapter 10, you get to 35, say, but in every nation, it's not talking about that nation. That word ethnos don't mean nation all the time. It can mean tribe. It can mean people. So it say in every tribe. See, that's what they was preaching. And then 36 say, the word which God sent unto the children of Israel. He didn't send this to other nations. He sent this to the children of Israel, that every tribe that keep his law was acceptable to him. And so when you look at 11:19, it tells you who they was preaching to. I'm gonna just jump straight to I'm gonna keep the whole verse. It said, now they which were scattered abroad upon the persecution that arose about Stephen traveled as far as Phoenice, Cyprus, and Antioch, preaching the word to none but unto Jews only. See, they didn't go to preaching. They all and mind you, Antioch is a so-called nation that was ruled by the Romans. The Romans was ruling Antioch, and so they was all around. But these people weren't preaching to anybody they can find. They was preaching to the Jews only. And this is the chapter 11. And Paul was preaching to the Gentile. So why wasn't Paul and Barnabas preaching to only the Gentiles only? Because the Gentiles was the Jews. And the Christianity don't teach that. They teaching anybody can come up in the harlot house and receive the blessings and the promises of the Israelites, and they can't. It's a bold-faced lie. And then not only is they causing our people to go off and to commit adultery to their God, who is their God only, they're causing the women to go off. Now let's get is it 2 Timothy chapter 2, and let's go straight to the point. Let's get straight to the point. Chapter 2, verse 26, it say, and that they may recover themselves. No, Salakia. Not that, Salakia. Chapter 3. 2 Timothy chapter 3. Check 2 Timothy chapter 3. Now, Salakia, bear with me just a moment. I went too far. Okay, 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 6. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 6. It says, for of this sort are they which creep into houses. You see, they creeping into these whorehouses, and they lead captives silly women laden with sin. Silly women laden with sin, led away with diverse lust. Verse 7. Ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. That's why I say they have a zeal for God, but not according to knowledge. See, they leading mainly women in these harlot houses, and they're being laden with sin, meaning they are being turned into harlots. And this is why you get, you see these harlot houses on every corner, full of women. No men really in the houses. But that's what's going on here in Babylon the Great America with the Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans, who are the Israelites. Salakia. Let me close out. All praises to Yahweh, Hashem, Yahawashi, Ba'ashem, Kakadash. Double honors to the elders pushing the truth. Peace to the elect worldwide. The kingdom is at hand. Shalom.